What's up, everybody? This is Phil Rogacki.
And I'm Jared Abergina.
You're listening to Two Tree Guys Podcast. What's up, everybody? Phil Rogacki here with another episode of 2TG. Today we're going to have our training talk here. But before I get into that, if this is the first time you guys ever listen to the show, appreciate it. Appreciate you guys listening to it. We have different shows on here. We have a What's Your Story, where individuals come on and talk about their story and how they got in the industry, and mentors. We have our Safety Talk, taking different incidents that happen in our industry. How do we improve them? How do we get better? How do we make our industry safer? We have our Gear Talk, where we bring different products in, new products, old products. We compare products and what works, what doesn't work, what do you like, and having the manufacturers telling you the inside and outs of a lot of stuff you don't know. And then we have our training talk, and that's what you're going to hear today. And this training talk today is something that I know has been asked from us many times, which is preparing for private equity, okay? For all of you out there that have sold your company, looking to sell your company, these are things you're going to learn from Mohit. We're going to talk to here in a minute from Clairvest. And you're going to hear what you have to do, what do you have to prepare for, what things is he looking for when he looks at your company, and so on and so forth for that. But before we get started, there's a fee. If you guys learn something, listen, we don't get paid. Maybe Clairvest is sponsoring this. I don't know. Maybe he cuts me a check, but he's not. We just ask you to share the show, pass it on, tag us in it, send it to a friend. This is how our show grows. This is how we do more episodes when you guys share it. So pay the mother effing fee, please. Thank you. Mohit, what's up, my friend?
Hey, man.
Welcome.
What's going on?
Have you ever done a podcast?
I have. I've done a few.
You just sound like a natural. I was going to have you start the whole thing off. I mean, just a pure natural.
I'm not capable of what you just did there. I'm not capable.
What kind of shows have you done?
Actually, I think I did a tree care podcast. I want to say a few years ago.
Okay.
I forget which. That might have been with TCIA itself. I forget. And then other industries we invest in. We're not just looking at the tree care industry, others as well. And I feel it's a great way to reach out, share what we're doing. There's a lot of noise out there, right? Just want to be able to tell our story. Yeah. Espouse a little bit of truth, and kind of pay it forward a little bit, right?
Exactly.
That's the goal.
Exactly. So tell us, dive in, man. Let's teach the world, teach the tree care industry across the nation.
Sure. So, as you said, Mohit Kansal, I'm a managing director at the Clairvest Group. We're a private equity firm based out of Toronto, Canada. Invest globally, primarily in the U.S. Been around a very long time, 35 years. So we've done a lot of different investments over the years. I think it's like 50 different investments, different industries. And really like the tree care industry. I've been spending time meeting with entrepreneurs, learning their stories, learning what's going on. So the first thing I would say is don't be afraid of private equity. I think it's a positive thing generally for an industry, right? So fully aware that maybe 10, 15 years ago, private equity wasn't really around the industry, right? You probably didn't hear about it as much. Mm-hmm. But these days you're hearing about it more. I mean, even just walking around the show, I see people with the nice dress shirts and the loafers, probably some.
That's private equity.
Private equity. They're not in the nice shorts and flip flops. But I think it helps elevate the industry, if I was to say, right? It helps further professionalize the industry, helps bring more money to it, helps think about, okay, how do we think about more profits? How do we think about more regulation, perhaps? And I think all these things end up helping the industry out, because that means you can hire more, that you can pay people more. You can help elevate safety. I think all these things come through. Mm-hmm. So I fully expect in 5 to 10 years, I think just the industry will continue to grow, and I think it's going to be better as a result.
Now, why is private equity looking at the tree care industry or the green industry together more now than they did in the past 10, 15 years?
Yeah, so I'd say firstly, just private equity in general is growing, in every industry almost to an extent, right? I don't want to get too statistical, but, of all the money out there, if you look back and, you hear about low interest rates and the government printing money, some of that money ended up in private equity coffers. So they've got this money to spend, and they're looking at every little industry and niche, and tree care seems to be a very interesting one. Some obvious stuff. The trees continue to grow no matter what. If we have a big recession or whatever, the trees are going to continue to grow. stuff like extreme weather. No surprise you're seeing more hurricanes, more hailstorms, all these sorts of things. That's going to require more tree care services. A lot of people like the fact that you call it fragmented, quote unquote fragmented, which means there's some big companies out there, of course, we know the names of them, but there's a lot of small companies. So what does that suggest? That suggests is maybe you can bring some of those small companies together and get what we call economies of scale, right? So if I've got two small companies that bring them together, I can, split some costs, right? So if I spend, $500,000 on some new fancy IT system, if it's two companies together, I only need to do that once versus twice, right?
Makes sense.
More with your suppliers, right? I can have more leverage against whoever and get better deals. So, we'll grow kind of no matter what because the trees continue to grow. There's benefits of scale. And it's just, that seems like a good industry. I mean, a side point, which I've observed, which is, maybe less in the books, but it's also just a friendly group of people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people are nice. They're willing to talk, willing to listen. And,
They're
life's
passionate.
Yeah.
About this
And
industry.
life is short kind of, and, there's different places to make money. I think, myself included, when I go in and meet with entrepreneurs and meet people, it seems like a fun, interesting industry. It's not a bunch of backstabbing, not a bunch of, hey, why are you talking to me? What's this sort of thing? So,
because how long have you been in the industry, the tree care industry right now, talking to individuals?
Probably about 3 years, I think,
3
on
years.
and off. Yeah.
And you've seen yourself just grow in knowledge and everything and learning this industry?
Correct. I have. Yeah. And it's, what I find it interesting is you see no tree care company is the same, right? There's so many different flavors of a tree care company. At the highest level, there's utility versus residential versus commercial, right?
Yeah.
And then every state has its own situation, right? I was going to say California is like its own country.
It is.
In terms of how the utilities operate, how big the market is. So there's many layers to it. Are you a prime? Are you a sub? Are you, do you have your own workforce? Are you using subs? What's your strategy? Are you pricing on time and materials? Are you doing fixed fees? So it's very interesting, and you peel the onion back, and part of my job is to figure out what is, I think, the secret sauce or part of the appeal is the companies who are winning and will win in the future, and then try to back these guys to continue that.
Now, are you the one that is making the decision if this is the company we want to invest in and partner with?
I have a lot of input into it. So the way it works, which is probably not too different to most private equity, is I have a small team who works with me and find the companies, do the quote unquote due diligence, make sure it's what we expect, and then I bring that up to what's something called an investment committee, which is where people with a little more gray hair and more money in their pocket than me sit on, and we have to write a memo for them, and they approve it or not. So it's I kind of put things forward, and they ultimately approve it.
How many? What's the average that you're when you present to them that you get approved? What's your close rate?
It's pretty high.
Yeah.
It's pretty high.
Because you don't bring anything to them unless.
Yeah, and then we
deal.
have checks and balances along the way, right? So it's not like I'm going to be talking with the company for 6 months and then it's a no, right? Like early on, we would have conversations internally and share information, so we're not wasting anybody's time.
Good.
It's more akin to it's not too different from a tree care company bidding on a really big deal, right? If you're putting a big you're running to a big RFP, you're going to be thoughtful on, okay, am I getting the right buy-in internally and all these sorts of things to do that.
Let's, preparing for private equity, the title of this podcast and training, go in and I want to explain really what private equity is, how it works, where the money's coming from, who's looking at the company, who are the buyers. And then I want you to get into talk about the things a company needs to be prepared for.
Yeah.
How it works, the conversation, just kind of step by step, we've had this conversation before, just a step by step of how the process works and what do they expect. And then after the deal's made, what happens after that?
Look at you, man. And to end here, let me give it a shot. So firstly, so what is private equity? Really, it's just, they're just funds. So as much as you might have in your 401k or in your own retirement account, you'll put money into these funds. So private equity will often get its money from really wealthy institutions or people with a lot of money, typically not individuals. So using us as an example, we call them limited partners. A lot of my money comes from university endowments, big pension funds, big insurance companies. These are folks with typically many hundreds of millions or billions of dollars, and they're trying to grow that money. So instead of just putting it in the stock market, they look for other things, and we're one of those options. Exactly. So it goes to private equity. And then we have these funds. So, Bank X or Endowment Y will say, okay, here, Clairvest, here's $50 million, here's $100 million, and that's sitting in our coffers. And then we have the mandate to, go find companies, grow them up, and sell them and get the money back. And you have this in kind of this cycle. Cycles are typically 10 years. For us, it could be 12, 15 years. Everybody's a bit different, but it's the cycle of, developing an investment thesis or an idea, meeting with companies, making that investment, helping grow the companies up, then getting liquidity or selling out to then return that money back. So it's this kind of this life cycle that exists, and then you kind of do it all over again.
Start all over.
Yeah. So that's how it works. Every private equity firm's a bit different, but that's the general way. In terms of preparing for private equity, I was going to think of a few things. First, really think about what you want. Maybe private equity is not the answer, but first just kind of do some soul searching, right? Do I want to be in this business for 20 years? Do I maybe want to pass this business down to someone in the family? Or do I want to get some money out, right? Just think about what you want. And if private equity is the answer, great, but sometimes it's not, right? Often I have conversations with individuals who are really thoughtful and they have a clear game plan. And they're saying, I'm going to pass it off to my son, who's going to pass it off to his daughter, et cetera, and it's kind of down. But if you're interested in private equity, again, I always kind of say three things. The first I would say is just get your financial and administrative situation in order, right? Private equity will get into the details.
What do you mean get in that order? Give me an example.
Having a good financial package, right? Closing your financials on a monthly basis in a timely manner. Having the right key performance indicators or KPIs. So for instance, I did $5 million of revenue last month and I made $1 million of profit, and $4 million was coming from these contracts and this and these many jobs, and these were the pricing. This is how much I spent on labor, so much spent on materials. Having good detail to how your performance is working and what the drivers are is paramount. And being able to show that historically on a consistent basis is going to be a focus of the private equity firm.
So does private equity, do they maybe if the company has a third party that's helping them with their accounting, cleaning up their books on a monthly basis and doing that? Or do you see more, they're doing it by themselves? That's fine.
Either will work. I would say if you're starting from scratch, maybe the third party is a good way to go, because there's maybe less money to spend up front on it. You can kind of get your guidance. I've seen both work fine. But maybe if you're starting from scratch, maybe it's a good start to get a third party involved. And I would say financials is one, but other things as well. Making sure your contracts are in order. Do I have the right employment agreements with my folks, right? Because again, private equity will ask for all the backup to all the contracts and all the financials. So just making sure that's kind of all in order. So I think once you've got that, a second thing I think about is the team, right? Do you have the right people around you? Because private equity is going to think about, okay, growth is probably going to be on the agenda. Growth's not easy, and you need the right people around you, right? You need to be really inward thinking, okay, is it really just me and I'm working with, I have no direct reports. I've got just me and then a bunch of other people. You think, okay, maybe I need to hire some lieutenants. Maybe I need to think about a head of HR, a head of financials that you talked about, right? Because you need to arm yourself with the right team, because when you're talking to private equity, you need to point to individuals and say, hey, I've got her, I've got him, and this is how it's going to grow. And then the last thing is just a clear strategy. What are you doing, right? What are you trying to do, again, to achieve that growth? Is it, I want to grow into that state. I want to grow with that utility. I want to make that acquisition. Because, again, you need to articulate. And then the way I think about it kind of in reverse is when you're telling the story of your company, you talk about the historical, you talk about the future. Then you point to the team and say, okay, this is how I'm going to go do it. And then you show the data to say, hey, I've done it, or I can clearly show the trajectory. Proven. So that's the way to do it. I find issues when there's broken links in that chain, right? And, sometimes entrepreneurs are good entrepreneurs and they're salespeople, but they'll talk about a story and then the facts won't be there, right? You need to be able to back it up with facts, right? For instance, I'm going to grow into this state and that state, and here's why, because I did that successfully 3 times in the past. Sitting in my shoes, that's very encouraging if I've seen that, right? Because we're all about risk and return. And if you've done it in the past, that lowers the risk, right?
Yeah.
And it increases the probability that you're going to do it again. So hopefully that kind of tells the story of how it works. Yeah,
it definitely does. Because, individuals getting in this industry and starting a company, normally it's, I'm working for a company. There's no more room to grow. And the only option I have is to go join a bigger company or start my own thing. And I know it. I've been doing sales. I've been doing this. I'm going to go start my own company. So they do. And then they build it up to a certain amount.
Got it.
It's usually owner, operator, salesperson doing it all. And they'll get to a, 2 million, maybe 5 million. And then they're like, okay, what do I do? I don't have someone I can pass it on to. What's my exit strategy? How do I get out of this? Eventually they got to retire and they want to pass it on to somebody. They want to sell it, but where do I even begin? Like, okay, do I just call a private equity firm and say, hey, I want to sell? Do I call another tree company? And that's kind of the point that stops them is, how do I get this ball going? And then, yourself coming along and your team, you coach, you lead. Here's the things I need. Here's what I'm looking for. Can you put this together? I'll work with you. So how does a company get this process started? Do they call you? Do they just call 100 private equity companies? Do they find a broker to put them out for sale of saying, hey, can you find these 20 private equity companies? How do they do that?
Yeah, good question. And my answer would be like, it depends, right? So I think first and foremost, like any topic, I would just encourage you to get smart, right? How do you get smart on a topic? I think it's talking to folks in the industry. Maybe they already sold to private equity or in a private equity company.
Okay, that's great.
Come to events like this, right? At the TCIA conference, right? Like, just get smart. It's a new topic. Just try to get smart any way you can. And there's, you can even just get on the internet and watch YouTube videos, right? Just get smart before you jump in. And then I would think about a third-party advisor could make sense. Talking to private equity firms that, maybe your colleagues know or whatnot. That, I would just try to gather information and see.
That's good.
I would say there's a little bit of left or right depending on your size, right? So if you're a bit, I don't want to say in the bad thing, if you're 2 to 5 million revenue company, that's phenomenal. You got to that point, but that's probably less interesting to private equity from a new platform point of view. But maybe that's something where you might want to sell it up to a bigger platform that already exists or something like that. So I would say get educated, figure out what you want to do, and then maybe it's a broker, maybe it's a third-party advisor. But I would say, as an example of the spectrum, right? If you were, hey, I know exactly what I want to do, or have a really good idea, I've really gelled well with a handful of private equity firms. Maybe I just contact 2 or 3 and say, okay, I'm going to pick the best of these 2 or 3. But if you're like, I don't really know what I want, I'm open to many options, maybe it's worth talking to a broker or a third-party advisor to help educate you a bit more and to bring more people to the fold. So
that's
it's
great.
A mix. Yeah.
It's a just like everybody in this industry, they got in and they just had to learn on their own a lot of times. They had some mentors around them. They asked questions. They read books. They went to trade shows. They joined they entered into a climbing competition, and every year they got a little smarter. So, for individuals out there looking to sell your company, ask around. Ask your vendors. Ask the people that know other tree companies. Go, oh, Mike's Tree Service just sold. They sold to a private equity company. Let me connect you. And get on there. And our industry is very giving. So people want to help. They want to direct you to the right person. And especially if a company's sold and they like your company, man, come join our team. Come be a part of us on there. That's important. Now, let me ask you this. Time comes. They're working with you. You got all their financials, all their numbers. It's time to make a deal. I mean, how do you evaluate a company to know how much they're worth and, what kind of deal you want to offer? I mean, is it a cash buyout? Is it a 50-50 ownership? Is it majority? Is it, what does it look like? And I know there's a lot, but how do you make a deal?
It's half art, half science, I would say. So that's
half heart, half science,
half art.
Half art. Oh, I thought you said half heart.
That too, maybe.
I feel it. This is the company I want.
Maybe there's a bit of that too. That's why I would say it's just good to be educated about private equity because there's so many flavors, right? So if you're looking for, I want to sell a piece of the business or maybe 50-50, it's a good reason to call us, right? I mean, it's a bit of a commercial, call Clairvest. But if you're looking to sell it 100% or you say, hey, I want to go into the night, that would, I think, kick off a different sort of set of conversations. And maybe you want to sell to a platform that already exists. So I guess that's what's different flavors of private equity who you might want to talk to. And that's why it's good to be educated. In terms of like actually crafting the deal, it's like, again, every private equity firm is going to have their own way. But again, we've been doing this for 35 years. We have certain structures we look at. It's probably some multiple on, cash flow, EBITDA. I don't want to get too financially here. Maybe there's some structure to say, hey, if you hit your 24 numbers, it might go up, it might go down. Like,
contracts.
This sort of, let me see your
diversity.
All these sort of things have input, right? Like the perfect company doesn't exist, right? It's exactly what the revenue and profits are going to be over the next 5 years. The growth is going to be exactly like this. It's well diversified, amazing management team. Like this doesn't exist, right? There's no perfect company, but you kind of peel the pieces back, and this is where the art comes in, right? And maybe some feeling, right? Because that's what happens. But and it's part of it, but some of it is feeling, right? And we're not in the actuary business, right? It can't solve it to the nth degree. So, relationship matters. Like, do you actually get along with the people at the private equity firm as well? And to be honest, as much as we might not admit that in the private equity world, like it matters. Again, I go back to
you're partnering with
life
them.
is short. I'm not going to do 30 deals in my lifetime. It might be like 10 or 15. So it's not like that many, right? So don't discount that, right? Do you get along with this person? The other thing I might say is just be transparent too. And I'm just trying to thinking of things, sometimes it doesn't go well, is when people are hiding things, right?
You're gonna find
out. And that just looks horrible on the company when there's because again, a bit of this is building trust both ways, right?
Yeah.
And you don't build trust by hiding stuff, right? If you've got a customer who's not happy, just be upfront with them. Hey, they're not happy, but here's what we're doing to fix it, right? I've got this lawsuit happening, whatever, this employee was upset, whatever, just be upfront on it. And here's the issue, here's what I'm doing to fix it. And when I hear that, it just helps build trust. And it helps, you're always thinking about, okay, when we do close, this is what I want to see, right? Because you're going to see problems.
Yeah.
I want to see a management team or CEO who's like, okay, we ran into something. We're going to fix it. Here's what I'm going to go do, and here's how I need your help. And again, versus closing your eyes to the opportunity or just kind of lying about it. It's not helpful.
Yeah, especially starting the relationship off and you find stuff out. You're like, oh man,
it's going to
I
go
don't know
bad.
if I trust. You start questioning. Yeah, exactly. And with a private equity company coming in, it's not just, hey, we're buying a company, just keep doing what you're doing. You guys come in, you support them on the financial side, on the growth side, strategies. I mean, you're part of the team with them, but you still don't want to take away what got them to where they're at.
Exactly. And I think that's another kind of flavor of a private equity, right? There's different structures. Do I want a minority deal, 50-50 deal, full sale? There's also different how heavy-handed do they get with the private equity firm, right? So some, maybe more family offices will just make the investment and kind of say, see you later, right? I might see you, 4 times a year. You report on the numbers. I'm good. Maybe that's what you want because you think you got it handled. You're good. On the other side of the coin, you have folks who are very heavy-handed, right? I've got, people on the payroll who've run companies before, and day one they parachute in and things change dramatically, right? You hear about these things. Maybe that's what you want, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like maybe you want.
Some people do.
Some people, hey, your HR is changing, your sales process is changing, all this sort of stuff. We're somewhere in between, I would say, in that spectrum. And our DNA is more about partnering with the entrepreneur. So we don't have a one-size-fits-all. We've done, I would say, pretty much everything over our 35-year career to help a company. But, and one company might be, hey, let's focus more on the financials and M&A. But they've got the operations down. They've got a great growth plan, right?
Yeah.
Reverse, it might be, they've done 5 acquisitions. They don't know the financials, but they need help with hiring. They need help. So during our due diligence process or when we're kind of in the dating scene, so to speak, we come up with a plan together and then we'll help where is needed to make that successful.
That's good. That's good for that. So, with your company, individuals listening, they contact you? I mean, how do they get a hold of you? What are you looking for in general? Give them just brief. I'm looking for companies over $5 million. Your EBIT does this. If you are and you fit in that, call me. Or you're going to be this very soon. We'll get the process started in the next year. You know you're going to hit those numbers. Call me. Do they email you? How do they get in contact with you and your company and reach out to you?
No, appreciate that. Appreciate the opportunity for a little commercial here, so to speak.
Yeah.
I would say if you have more than 20 million of revenue and or more than 5 million in EBITDA, which is essentially just profits, please do reach out. Maybe on the description of my email, but mohitk at clairvest.com, clairvest.com. Happy to respond, happy to chat through. And if it's not for us, hopefully you get some learning out of it, right?
Yeah.
And I know like life is short, happy to just chat too. If you're a bit smaller, please do reach out anyway. Come on, I'm happy to spend half an hour with you. And, maybe to your earlier question, I don't know where to start on the journey. Happy to, go through my internal checklist of 10, 15 questions. And maybe it's not us, but I could pass you on to someone else or recommend a few people to chat with, right? No downside in that.
And I've known you for the last couple of years, guys. Yeah. And he's a gentleman you want to chat with. You're always friendly. You're always answering any question. You're asking a lot of questions too, learning, which I was always free to give up those answers and to help you out too. But guys, easy to talk to. I'm telling you, don't be scared to call him. Give him a call. Send him an email. He will help you out or give you in the right direction. And maybe there's some other PE companies out there, that you can maybe direct them towards. That's looking for a smaller company and that, or, building this relationship. Everybody knows everybody in this industry. So talking to these individuals, they'll direct you in the right path and introduce you as maybe some people that can help you guys out and you can help them at the same time.
For sure. And appreciate the dialogue, Phil. Always willing to answer my stupid questions sometimes, but I've gotten the Phil education at times. Yeah,
exactly. Guys, preparing for private equity, it's more and more we're seeing this in our industry. It's not out of the norm. It's something that I think is unifying our industry, helping expand it, helping to grow it, putting us on the main stage, which our industry was, a lot of people didn't know about it. And now investors and Wall Street and everybody's going the green industry, the tree care industry. There's a lot of money there, and you can have your legacy live on. You can get paid. You have a way out of retiring in this industry. So if you guys need answers, reach out to me, reach out to Mohit, research, Google, ask people in this industry who they sell to. Is there anybody they need to talk to? Everybody's always willing to help. So I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing some of your knowledge. And remember, everybody, if you got something out of this, if you learned something, share it, tag someone, send it in an email to somebody. But remember to continue to elevate the standard of this industry through safety, training, and innovation. Till next time, see you guys. Bye.